Hello, Drake Hawkins, Sad Boy Cinema here, and today I'm actually going to be doing an idea that I've been tossing around in my head for a while, which is reviewing and ranking every Kendrick Lamar album from worst to best. Now, since it's albums, obviously I'm not going to be including his mixtape Overly Dedicated, but I will be including the Black Panther soundtrack because I do think that is technically an album. He's literally on like every track here. That's pretty much it. You know who Kendrick is if you clicked on this video. If you know me, you know who Kendrick is because he's my favorite artist and I do not shut up about him. So today I'm reviewing every Kendrick album from worst to best. So let's get on with it. And in last place, we have the obvious, Section 8. So with it being his first project, his voice isn't as good as it would be on later releases, and his conceptuality and lyricism and storytelling and everything that Kendrick is known for today is just not as good as it is on anything else. This one just has some tracks that I do not like whatsoever, which the main song I'm talking about there is Tammy's Song, because its narrative literally depicts homosexuality in women as being a result of failed relationships with men, which is not at all how lesbianism works. Why did I say lesbianism like it's a fucking religion? But yeah, the narrative and the politics of that song has just not aged very well. Not to mention, the instrumental is just not good whatsoever. I do like the harmonized refrains and stuff on that track though. That's pretty nice, but I just cannot get past the lyrics, which is the main focus of any Kendrick Lamar record, even his first one. Now, that doesn't mean the entire record is bad though, because obviously there are bangers like ADHD, Rigor Mortis, Hole Up, Fuck Your Ethnicity, The Spiteful Chant, which I am pissed that song is not on Spotify because it is my favorite song off the project. And I've seen a few people say that Ab-Soul's outro is kind of bad and pointless and especially because it doesn't feature a whole lot of Kendrick, but it's Ab-Soul's outro. Ab-Soul kills it. I love the jazzy aesthetic of this track. I love every aspect of it. It's just so smooth, and Ab-Soul's rapping over it is just so nice. Whereas I don't really like Ab-Soul from the few features I've heard him on. I don't really like him, but he did a pretty good job on this song. And then you have the actual outro of the album, High Power, which is so good. Not the greatest thing in the world or anything, but that J. Cole production is so good. So yeah, I think this album was a pretty good start for Kendrick. A little inconsistent, but it's the first release. What can you expect? It's a pretty decent album to start your career with. I give this a 7 out of 10. The next album on the list is the Black Panther soundtrack. Yay! I really like this album. It's a really good compilation and shows so many different artists' talent and really can introduce you to a whole new world of artists that you've never heard of before. Or it can make you fall in love with artists that you've heard of but just never cared to check out. Like the track X with Schoolboy Q and 2 Chainz. That was one of the first songs that made me fall in love with Schoolboy Q's music, and damn, that 2 Chainz feature at the end is just We also have another great performance from Ab-Soul on here on the track Bloody Waters, which is the only track that I can think of on the top of my head that has no Kendrick appearance whatsoever. And this is a Kendrick review, so from being the mediator on the track Paramedic with SOBRB, or teaming up with Travis Scott again to make another banger on Big Shot, I think Kendrick puts in some pretty good performances here. I will say that the biggest downfall of this album is Kendrick's hook game. Kendrick's hook game on here can just get really annoying. I will say his hooks on Paramedic and King's Dead are pretty solid. They don't annoy you. They do their job. They move it from verse to verse. However, tracks like X and Big Shot, they can get really fucking annoying really quick. Like, Kendrick does such a good job painting a picture with the introductory track, and then a few tracks later on X, he's just being the most annoying part of the record. Once again, another solid release, but a little inconsistent all around, as it's a soundtrack, so what can you really expect? And then I know my next pick is going to get me crucified in the comments if this video gets seen by a decent amount of people, but it is my genuine opinion, and I just do not find this album to be 1,000,000% fantastic. Good Kid, Mad City. Listen, I think that this is a really, really good album. I just think that there are some points of the project that has not aged well, and his vocal performances are weak at some points, and that is undeniable in my opinion. Take Backseat Freestyle, for instance. Narratively speaking, this does what it's supposed to do, and it fills its space nicely, portraying a young Kendrick freestyling with his friends, and just being, young, dumb, and broke. However, I don't entirely love his performance here. I know it's supposed to be dumbed down. I know it's supposed to be just braggadocious. I know that it's serving this point in the album, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to skip it. There are a couple tracks on T-Pab where he's rapping in a certain way to portray a younger character or a different character or a certain persona or a certain emotion, and it works greatly there. On this album, I don't think it does. I think it just ruins a couple of the songs here. And sometimes the reason it's a bad performance isn't even because he's trying to portray a character. It's just because he can't sing, like on the track Real. You cannot tell me his really nasally and squeaky voice on the chorus there does not annoy you. I like the really spacey instrumental on it, and I really like the verses. They're really well penned, and I love the flow of it, and I love the entire vibe. But that chorus turns me off of the track so much that I always skip it into the next song, because Compton is really, really good. Compton is a damn good song. It's just... it's a better outro for the album than fucking Real is. And if you want to be even realer, if you want to be more real, the song that came up before that, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, would have been a perfect outro. Just move the vocal snippet from Real and move it into the next, just move the voicemail from Real and put it into Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, and the album could have finished there. It could have finished right there, and the album would have been still the same score, because there's another track that I really don't like here. Poetic Justice with Drake. I do not like this song. It is too spacious. It's too empty. It feels like there's not enough going on in the instrumental. I know it's supposed to be a lovey-dovey, spacious, simpler song, but I don't like it. It's one of the points on the album where I feel like he was trying to be too commercial, and it really jeopardizes the sound for the album, and it just has not aged well, in my opinion. Like, Kendrick's performance is good on this track. I really like his voice. I really like his delivery over this instrumental. I just don't like the instrumental. And then Drake's verse, on the other hand, I also really don't like that. But yeah, in general, I really don't like those couple of songs. The rest of the album is fantastic. You have the intro, Shireen, which sets up this darker atmosphere, and then he starts telling you about the story of how he met Shireen and the house parties and that sort of thing. And he goes to meet up with her to, smash, as young boys love to do. But instead of smashing, he gets fucking jumped. Another big highlight here is The Art of Peer Pressure, which is probably still my favorite song from this record. The storytelling is so vivid to the point where you feel like you were in that van with Kendrick and doing those house raids with Kendrick and doing everything there. You feel like you're a part of the story. Because of the vibe of this song, it's very stripped down. It's very basic. It's a very simple instrumental. Everything is just so vivid and crystal clear. His vocals are crisp. Everything is just so perfect on this track, and it is gorgeous to listen to. Then you have other bangers on this album like Mad City and Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, which are two of Kendrick's inarguably best songs. Are inarguably two of his best. You get the fucking point. Point is, I don't hate this record. I really love this record, actually. I just think that Kendrick has done better albums after this, and yeah, that's my opinion. This is an 8 out of 10 record. I didn't give a score for Black Panther, did I? No. That's a 7 out of 10. Yeah. Next record on this list, Untitled Unmastered. I enjoy this more than Good Kid, Mad City. This, like most of Kendrick's albums, has a really unique atmosphere that you're not going to get much of anywhere else. Listening to this album kind of feels like sitting in a room with a bunch of jazz performers just improvising and playing off each other's strengths and just having as much fun as they can with the little bit of time that they've given themselves. And therefore, I think every track on here is highly enjoyable. And I'm going to start with the track that everyone has put as their least favorite track on this album, which is Untitled 04. That part where SZA comes up in the background with that choir of just breathy it's just so euphoric and so heavenly, and it feels really dystopian. This track really does, especially when it gets to the latter half of this already short track and a lot of the vocals start getting delayed and this lower voice comes in and everything. It just sounds really dystopian and eerie, and it just paints this beautiful picture of darkness. It's a gorgeous piece of music, and I don't get why everyone says it's the worst track. What would I say is the worst track? Yeah, probably that, because I enjoy everything else more. I do love that track, though. It is great. I just think that Untitled 07, Untitled 02, Untitled 05, Untitled 01, Untitled 08, and Untitled 06 are better. And yes, I did not leave out 3. 3 is okay. It just sounds like it's a T-Pab left over. And genuinely, before I listened to T-Pab for the first time, like all the way through. I thought that it was on TPAB because it sounds like it's from TPAB. Now, to be fair, some people have deemed this as TPAB leftovers, but I feel like this has this own atmosphere that doesn't entirely fit on the record, whereas I think Untitled 03 would have fit snugly into TPAB. And you cannot tell me that Untitled 01 would have fit into TPAB. There's no way it would have. Untitled 02 would not have. That is my favorite Kendrick song ever, by the way. 02, it is such a hypnotic rap song. I've never heard anything like it in my life. And then once the main verse at the end starts, it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. Like, it's not a very deep song or anything. It doesn't have a very deep message, but the energy it gives off is unlike any other song Kendrick has released to date. I genuinely think that this album has an energy that no Kendrick album has given since, and probably will ever give again. This is a unique, one-of-a-kind experience of an album, and since it's so short, that just adds to its replayability factor. This one's an 8 out of 10 as well. I just enjoy it slightly more than Good Kid, Mad City. But yeah, next album on the list, as we only have 3 more, Damn. This is one of Kendrick's most divisive releases when it dropped, especially coming off of TPAB, Good Kid, Mad City, and Untitled Unmastered, which had these very unique sounds. Kendrick blending in with modern day trap really caught people off guard. Like, up until this point, there weren't a whole lot of teases that he was going to go for this sort of contemporary sound, but he did it. He did it. Now, were all the tracks pulled off well? In some people's opinion, no. In my opinion, also no. I think that God could have been a much better track, and Love, it's okay, but everything else is phenomenal. Like the opening track, which starts off this loose narrative and then goes into one of his hardest songs to date, or the multifaceted Triple X featuring U2, or the really in-depth look at the different fears at 3 different points in his life on the track Fear. This album was just masterfully penned and performed from front to back, and I really did not expect for a contemporary album to be this good from Kendrick. Not like I expected it to be trash or anything, but this is fantastic. And so yeah, that only leaves 2 albums left, and at number 2 we have Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Like, enough time has passed where I can definitively say that this is one of Kendrick's best projects, period, right? Because I saw people the night it released, like a few hours after it released, not even a few hours, like 2 hours at most. That's basically a few hours. People on Twitter were saying that this was shit, that this was the worst album they had ever heard. Like, goddamn, give art time to make an impression on you. And I believe I've given this album enough time because I've listened to it a countless amount of times, and I have nothing but positives to say about this album. Aside from the questionable inclusion of Kodak Black and the way that I wish Auntie Diaries would have been worded a little bit better, this album is Kendrick being Kendrick on his own terms. Whereas on albums like To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City, he felt like he had something to say. He felt like he had to uplift his generation and he had to uplift the black youth from where he comes from. This album is him being him for him. If that's a bad way to say it, I'm sorry, but I really do not know how to say that other than he's being himself on this record. And I think it's great. He literally pushes away the savior complex that so many people, including him, have put on his shoulders. This album is him focusing on his traumas, his flaws, his triumphs, his issues as a human being. This is him being himself fully for the first time on record. Now, that's not even me talking about the music, but the music on here is fantastic. Whether it's the really synth-heavy N95 or the really old-school boom-bap Father Time, every track on here either slaps, hits you emotionally, or is an emotional slap. That last category mainly is just Mirror, because that song bumps, but it's also sad as shit. There aren't really any songs on here that I find to be weak or less than everything else. Even with the overuse of the F-slur and Auntie Diaries, it's still a really good track and really portrays the message that he's trying to get across. This is a very beautifully painted self-portrait that Kendrick has presented us, and I really love it from cover to cover. So yeah, this one is a 9 out of 10. Almost a 10. It would be a 10 if Auntie Diaries was just, if it chilled down on the F slurs. Like, I get the usage, but that's a bit much. You know what I mean? Like, chill. It's a 9. But yeah, we all know what number 1 is. To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar's magnum opus. What can I say about this album that hasn't already been said? Absolutely nothing. Goodbye.
You ugly as fuck. You out of pocket. 2 ATMs, you stepping to what? You out of pocket.